after me. So tonight, because this is Chandra Mushtika, the wrestlers, he was really on a roll. Anyone else there in Mathura? The washerman. That was the most questionable. Nothing Krishna does is questionable. He has his own reasons. But at that time, while he was doing all of this, where were his parents, his birth parents? Prison. They were in prison, right? And so in prison, they were hearing, oh, Krishna has killed this massive elephant. In fact, they also heard about one other amazing thing that he did. Remember? He broke the bow. There was this huge sacrificial bow, and he just went in and broke it. And the crack of that bow reverberated all the way to the palace and entered Kamsa's heart, shook him up. So all this was going on. And somehow, without the internet, Devaki and Vasudeva in jail were hearing about all of these things. Apparently, people were just coming. Did you hear what he did? He did this. He did this. And so after killing Kamsa, the first thing Krishna did was to go to the jail and release his parents. And so because they had heard all of these amazing things their son had done, their mood towards him had changed. They could not really envision their son as their son anymore. They knew that he had to be divine. And so in spite of having not seen him in so many years since he was born, rather than some kind of tearful reunion, they just paid obeisances. They couldn't even give him a hug. They just paid their respects. Oh, Krishna must be God. He's killed Kamsa. He's done all of these amazing things. And of course, they had seen him when he was born. He was born how? Yeah, completely God Almighty, Vishnu. Vishnu is like the God of the material world. You know that he's got the lotus flower and the conch shell to receive people favorably, and then he's got the club and the disc to receive everyone else. And he's majestic, and he's formal, and he's intimidating, or awe-inspiring at least. Right? This is how Krishna appeared initially for Devaki and Vasudeva. And so Devaki and Vasudeva have these conflicting relationships, these conflicting rasas. That sometimes they think of Krishna as their son. So when he was born as Vishnu, Devaki said, oh my goodness, please don't keep this dramatic form. Please look like a normal child so Kamsa won't catch you. And this shows her awe and reverence was overcome by maternal love. But when they saw Krishna again, after all these years, their maternal love or parental love was overcome by awe and reverence. And so as a result, they could not even embrace him. And so the very first thing that Krishna does upon seeing him, or seeing them, is to speak to them in such a way as to invoke their parental love. Just as when he showed Arjuna the universal form, he afterwards immediately reverted to his two-arm form and said, here's the form that you really love. So I'm going to ask, could we turn off the lights? That way everyone can probably read a little more easily. What do you think? Oh, yeah? Oh, I can do it myself. All right, so much control. There's, you do over there? Okay. Is that better? Yes. Okay, so since Vasudeva and Devaki held back affinity for their beloved Krishna and his clear divinity, the Lord invoked his power of illusion to restore the deep parental love for him the two had known before. My dearest loving parents, said the Lord respectfully, both Balaram and I have caused you such anxiety. Deprived by fate, we could not spend our childhood in your home, enjoying all the loving care you surely would have shown. The parents give the body, which accommodates the soul and keeps this precious vehicle protected, strong, and whole. Though he return a lifetime service to the partnership, what man could ever compensate his parents for their gift? A healthy, wealthy son whose parents starve must realize the guards of hell will force feed him his body when he dies. A man of means who fails to care for parents, guru, wife, or children is a dead man who pretends to harbor life. For many years, we failed to honor both of you because King Kangsa always frightened us and passed unfriendly laws. Forgive us, Father, Mother, please. King Kangsa took away our freedom to express the love we felt for you each day. To hear their darling Krishna making statements such as these made Vasudeva and Devaki choke up and feel quite pleased. Parental love for Krishna flooded both their eyes with tears, and speechless, they embraced the sons they'd missed for all these years. Lord Krishna gave the throne of Mathura to Ugrasen. We're cursed to never take this throne ourselves, the Lord explained. But have no fear. We'll both stay here and join your entourage. What other kings could challenge you, O king? Indeed, what God? You remember how Ugrasen had been imprisoned by his son Kamsa. Something like Shah Jahan, right? And Aurangzeb. Yeah. So they were feeling the obvious succession would have been Krishna to take the throne. But first of all, he was only about 10 years old. Right? And secondly, there was some curse. Does anyone know the history of that particular curse? I don't know it, but I'm just curious. Oh. Okay, we'll have to research that. Anyway, the point is that the boys now freed their parents, and they took care of the management of the kingdom. And now their parents are back in the parental mood again, Devaki and Vasudeva. But their foster parents are also in town. They had come to pay their tax, and they watched the whole thing in the arena as well, and saw Kamsa killed by their son, and the wrestlers killed by their son. But the difference between Devaki, Vasudeva, and then Nanda and Yashoda is that Nanda and Yashoda's parental love is never shaken. It is never even touched by awe and reverence. Maybe just for a moment, like when Krishna showed the universe within his mouth. For a moment, Yashoda thought. But as you'll see here, their perception of Krishna has always remained untouched. Lord Krishna welcomed family members back from long exile. They'd fled in fear of Kamsa, but could now be reconciled with friends and loved ones they had left behind some years before. Appreciating Krishna, they rejoiced at home once more. Protected by Lord Krishna, all these pious refugees felt safe and pleased in Mathura with Krishna's devotees. And watching Krishna smile each day, which they would do at length, made even elder refugees do something. Yeah, we got cut off. Do you remember what the rhyme was? They even elder refugees feel young and full of strength. Okay. Turn it off. Please. Next. When Krishna and his brother had seen every need addressed, they came before King Nanda, hugged him tightly, and expressed, "O Father, you and Yashoda have cared for us so well. You loved us more completely than you even loved yourselves. When parents who give birth cannot fulfill their children's needs, adoptive parents such as you are true parents indeed. Return now to Vrindavan, Father. We shall see you when we've given some relief here to our long tormented friends." Consoling Nanda and his men, Lord Krishna then bestowed a host of gifts upon them, such as jewels, tools, and clothes. Lord Krishna's speech made Nanda weep and left him overwhelmed. He hugged his sons again and slowly went back to his realm. Since Vasudeva, at last, could do the things he'd never done, he called for priests to now complete the rites for both his sons. The boys received their Gayatris, a person's second birth, and Vasudeva gave everyone donations of great worth. He gave out costly ornaments like famous kings of old, along with many cows and calves adorned with cloth and gold. Relieved from Kamsa's prison, he gave gifts of every kind. When both his sons were born, he'd done the same thing in his mind. Both Balaram and Krishna seemed like good submissive boys, completing all these rituals with gravity and poise. Approaching Gargamuni, honored guru of their peers, they vowed to stay as celibates throughout their student years. Although they are the origin of everything that's known, the lords next chose to go to school some distance from their home, with Sandipani Muni in the town of Avanti. When they arrived, they chose to hide their true identities. The two new students quickly bowed before their teacher with respect and quickly learned the Vedas and the corollary texts. They learned of warfare, law, and philosophical debate. They learned when they should fight, sit tight, or just accommodate. They learned both arts and sciences, in total 64. Singing, music, dancing, drama, drawing on the floor, painting, self and canvas, laying floors with ornaments, gardening and dressing up in earrings, jewels, and scents, spreading bed sheets, bringing pots of water, making wreaths, mixing colors, wearing helmets, dressing, tinting teeth, sleight of hand, drink making, masquerading, jugglery, weaving, sewing, cooking, playing lute and puppetry, writing and resolving puzzles, memorizing verse, book reciting, puzzle craft, to act and to rehearse, solving enigmatic statements, making bows and shafts, spinning with a spindle, woodwork, jewel testing crafts, architecture, mineralogy, the use of herbs, metallurgy, training fighting rams and different birds, teaching parrots how to answer questions and to talk, making herbal ointments, reading books and curling locks, writing books, constructing shrines, devising sophistry, learning rural languages, composing poetry, building carts from flowers using math to make up games, using charms, conversing, setting verse in mental frames, playing, tinting, gambling, dice, achieving victory, using mystic power to assert authority, and waking one superior at dawn with gentle tones. The boys each day would concentrate and make one skill their own. Thereafter, as is customary, both the grateful lords presented to their teacher his selection of rewards. Considering these students and consulting with his wife, the learned teacher asked them, "Bring our dead son back to life." On learning how the boy was lost at sea, the lords agreed. They climbed aboard their chariot and drove at lightning speed directly to the beach that claimed the boy. Upon its sands, the god of all the oceans came and bowed with folded hands. Said Krishna, "You have claimed my guru's baby in your waves. We want you to return him to us safely, right away." Replied the god, "That boy succumbed to one I can't control, a demon named Pankajana, who preys on blameless souls." The Lord entered the water and destroyed the guilty beast, a giant conch who plied the surf, enjoying human feasts. There was no sign of Sandipani's son in his remains, so Krishna went at once to search the Lord of Death's domain. Accompanied by Balaram and carrying the shell recovered from the beastly conch, the Lord drove straight to hell. He blew the conch shell loudly. He was not to be ignored. The denizens of hell all stopped, unsettled by the roar. The razor leaves fell off the trees. The Ruru beasts who toiled to punish sinful souls dispersed, and those who boiled in oil felt for all their sins felt cool again. Yes, every sinner flew to Krishna's planet, hell abandoned when that conch shell blew. And then, before the boys, the Lord of Death himself appeared. King Yamaraj, that very person everybody fears, approached Lord Krishna and his brother, humble and serene, and said, "How can I serve you in your play as human beings?" "Great king, due to his karmic lot, our guru's son is dead. He's come to you. Now bring him here to me," Lord Krishna said. "So be it," answered Yamaraj, returning his young guest. The three returned to Sandipani, meeting his request. Said Krishna to his guru, "Do you have another task?" Said Sandipani, "Dear disciples, what more could I ask? You have no further obligation. Please go back to home. In this life and the next, may you be wise and widely known." The boys complied and quickly plied to Mathura again. Their chariot, as loud as thunder, swifter than the wind, returned them to a city fraught with separations, grief, for only their arrival brought the citizens relief. And that was Krishna and his parental, his parental rasa, both Nanda and Vasudeva and their family. So you see how Krishna fills everybody's desire to have a relationship, how Krishna can relieve unbearable sufferings, even the loss of a child, which is perhaps the greatest of all sufferings a person can endure. What pastime does this remind you of? Krishna returning the dead son of Sandipani. Anyone remember another similar incident? Comes much later in the 10th canto. Devaki's son, yes. So you remember Devaki lost her 6 sons before Krishna was born. We had an interesting discussion about that the other day in Gainesville about this. So Devaki and Vasudeva knew that Kamsa was going to kill every child that they conceived, and that they continued conceiving children one after the next. So the question was raised, well, what is the difference between that and abortion? The children are being conceived knowing they're going to die. So, any thoughts on that? Yeah. They knew this was the only way they were going to see Krishna. And this was the only way that the whole situation could be reconciled. They had to conceive these 7 children before Krishna would appear. Of course, the 7th child was Balaram, and he was transferred. Everyone thought Devaki had had a miscarriage. So his first 6 children were just this unbearable suffering that Krishna's parents were going through, one child after the next after the next. Can you imagine? And yet, this was somehow Krishna's plan for them. And when we see these pastimes, I mean, Krishna could have so easily been, born at home with a midwife, or, in a very conventional way. But he chose this very unusual method. And then, on top of that, all of these siblings being lost. Even the son of his guru did not leave without Krishna's sanction, right? So why does Krishna put these dear devotees through these intense tests, incredible, unbearable turmoil? If nothing else, it ought to make us appreciate that whatever challenges we have in our lives are modest by comparison. Okay? And having heard about what Krishna did for Sandipani Muni, much later on, many, many years later, Devaki asked him, "Please, can you return my 6 sons in the same way?" And of course, Krishna does this. And of course, there's a backstory to the whole thing. That these were 6 demigods who had, the sons of Marichi, who had, and they laughed at Brahma and had been cursed. It is also interesting perspective, isn't it? It's very difficult for us to see in our life, in our short span of life. But these pastimes with Krishna and his devotees extend many lifetimes past and forward. And, there's so much backstory to everything. So, in conclusion, we can see how Krishna is so gracious to his devotees, how even when his devotees appear to be in difficulty, they are never out of Krishna's care, and how Krishna relishes the loving relationships with his devotees much more than the awe and veneration that is at best offered to God by conventional people. All right, so now some of the exceptional devotees in the audience before we hear from our 2 students. Maybe a little discussion on these points. Yes, lovely.
Hearing about the sacrifice an aspiring devotee is inspired. Hearing about the sacrifice of these advanced souls, and aspiring devotee is inspired to at least tread along. But personally, just along the same lines, have recently struggled a lot with the killing of Draupadi's 5 sons, and I just wanted if you have any personal reflections on that.
Did they have some backstory? The 5 sons of Draupadi? Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I don't know it.
I mean, the amount of price Krishna would ask of
Draupadi.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't address that, but we can see how Draupadi responded when the boy's killer was to her. How she responded with so much poise and deference to the killer because he was the son of their teacher. She said, "We've just begun our reign now at the end of this terrible battle. So many people have died. Is our first action going to be to kill the son of our teacher?" And although Bhima was very enthusiastic to kill him because he had lost his son, Yudhisthira agreed with Draupadi. This is such a very significant pastime. First of all, it shows us that the opinions of women were highly esteemed. It was Draupadi's decision what to do, and her husband deferred to her wishes. So Draupadi is so glorified for this. And again, this is the reason behind all of Krishna's pastimes with his devotees, to glorify his devotees. All right. Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or reflections? Krishna Jini?
Krishna does not bring Draupadi's sons back.
No.
So I think one reflection from this pastime is, as devotees, we cannot project or extrapolate and say, you did that, do the same for me.
Yeah.
And maybe Krishna's guru, he's in a different position. Krishna assumes the position of a student, and the guru can ask.
Mm-hmm.
But those who are devotees of Krishna, I think us imposing our request on him
they don't want to ask.
Also feels like that's conditional. That's love with the string. If you do this for me. But taking that position that Draupadi did, which is, I'm not going to ask Krishna, how come you put me through all this and then this happens? Instead, she's focusing on the future. Another mother shouldn't suffer the same way I did.
The way I did, yes, so sensitive.
She somehow, through the suffering, pulls her up to more elevated. But that is one more step in progressive spiritual life towards Krishna.
Very good, thank you. Beautiful reflection, thank you. Okay, other thoughts? Yes.
Not again.
How Sachimata had, so Sachimata and Jagannath Mishra they had 12 miscarriages. Before they had Vishnu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then she also had to undergo their sannyas, and she repented for the offense that she made to the Acharya.
Yeah.
So she had just reminded me of how much undergone she had to go through as well.
Yes, and how again, like Draupadi, she was so elevated and glorified for hours. That's a beautiful analogy as well. Thank you. No one has it easy. Krishna's pastime. Only it seems like the cowherd boys had it easy, always getting out with Krishna, never getting put in much distress, except when Krishna left. Okay, any other thoughts?
Like Krishna was adopted by Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, can devotees adopt? Just what are your thoughts on options for devotees?
It's when devotees adopt. Well, I know some devotee families who have adopted. One reason or another. And I would say mixed results. Sometimes the children have come out very well-rounded. Other times they've had difficulty all throughout their lives. It's a big sacrifice. Yeah. This life goes so fast. That's the thing. It really amazes me, and especially in Krishna consciousness. If you live in Krishna consciousness, you're putting your life on fast forward, at least 1.5 or 2 times speed. And the reason that is because of the regularity of hearing and chanting, and because of the consistency of your purpose and goal going back to Godhead. So it becomes one specific trajectory. And that is a great asset for making life go not only quickly, but pleasantly in this material world, as pleasantly as possible. So we need to consider, do we want to take these responsibilities? Conceiving a child, adopting a child. But it is the dharma of grihastas in general, to have children. Not always, but in general. And that's, I know for me as a parent, it drew out many things that I never realized I had in me as a brahmachari. And so for me, it was an extremely good experience. But whether it's as a renunciate, with children, without children, the goal of life is to go back to Godhead. And ideally, we take those decisions that facilitate. And then when whatever Krishna may send, we just accept that, we work with that, and do our best, knowing that our purpose is clear. Okay, that's why we need to keep hearing and daily reminding ourselves from Srila Prabhupada why we are in this material world, that there's no shelter in this material world, and the goal of life is the sublime life in the spiritual world. Right? Thank you. Yes.
Just taught how to gamble when gambling is one of the 4. Not to do like regulated principles. Like even Yudhishthir Maharaj engaged in gambling, and even Krishna was taught gambling. Why?
It's a sport and a competition. Excuse me. And there is an art to it. For Kshatriyas, there are many things they can do that would not be done by other varnas. Hunting, right? Polygamy. So Kshatriyas have a special set of, because they're in the mode of passion. Gambling is, passionate, ignorant. Maybe I can get something for nothing. And this is why the Kshatriyas always have to be under control of the Brahmins. But if the Brahmins are in charge of the management, then everything is chaotic as well. That's our problem in ISKCON. All right, anything else? All right, so now we'll hear from Kirti, the birthday girl. Just a few reflections on what it's like to be in double digits now. Can you stand up for everybody?
You can take a seat there.
First of all, thank you everybody for coming to my birthday party. Yeah, I like being 10. That's
What's your plan for this year?
I'm going to read a summer, that's all.
Haribo.
What's it? How does it feel different to be 10 than when you were younger?
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel different.
Just a number. You are planning to do more studies now?
Maybe.
Mom is surprised.
That's a good answer.
Any other questions?
When are you joining Krishna house?
We can see if she.
Not yet.
What was that?
How you are going to treat your brother from after 10?
Not differently.
Lucky Rahul. Not different.
Not different. Okay, so
If you want anything from your parents, this is the right time. Just something can ask.
I already have 3 ice cream cakes. I think that's
okay. Thank you very much, Katie. You
Hari.
wonderful. Okay, and now a gentleman who's never at a loss for words.
I was told that I have 5 minutes. We'll see.
stand up.
Om Gyanatiridan Viskagaranjana Sharaka Chakshurimitan So, I'll first recite a verse from the Bhagavatam. This is like more than 5 minutes. It's 1:5:22. Just if you know the verse, recite along, or yeah, we'll just keep this quick. Idam hi pumsa stapasa shrutasya vas visasya suktasya chaputti datayo avichutorta kavipir nirupito yaduttama shloka gunanuvarnanam. The translation: Learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. The purport is 2 paragraphs long. That'll take up my 5 minutes, but I'll read the last sentence of the purport. Real utilization of advanced knowledge is to establish the glories of the Lord, and that is the real import. Scientific knowledge engaged in the service of the Lord and all similar activities are factually Hare Kirtan, or glorification of the Lord. So yeah, I was reflecting on the last 4 or 5 years of my education. And I was thinking like how this turned out, how I turned out now was very surprising. I just don't know how to hold a mic in a way that people can hear properly. But yeah, I thought I would be at MIT right now. That didn't happen. I didn't think I'd be initiated by now, but by the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, that happened. So yeah, there's a lot of ups, lots of downs, lots of wonderful events happening, lots of not so wonderful events happening, but in the end, Krishna is always in charge, so it was sweet in its own way. So, I ask all the devotees present to bless me so that I can use my education in the service of Lord Krishna. I'll be staying at Ohio State, so those who like me, that's good. Those who don't like me, you can tolerate me for 4 more years, I hope. Maybe I'll graduate early, we'll see. I ask all the devotees to bless me so that I can use all the knowledge to serve the Krishna conscious movement, my spiritual master, and Srila Prabhupada, and ultimately Shri Shri Radha. So, Hare Krishna.
Also, 5 more minutes.
Also, this is we'll follow some Raghunaga Bhakti. We'll have something spontaneous. I'm not the only one graduating this year. Vahin's also graduating. It's also wonderful. He didn't know he was doing this, but we'll ask him to speak as well.
Herbal.
Haribo.
As you all know me, my name is Vahin. But like Rahul said, I guess I just got put right on the spot. So I guess I'll like ask for all you guys' blessings as well. So I can put in my education, everything in for Krishna.
What are your plans?
Me, We'll see. Hopefully, probably go into either computer science or finance, but still debating. So whichever way Krishna wants me to go, I'll be going that way. Verbal. Thank you.
Okay. So any questions for these young gentlemen? They're high school graduates and know everything. No? All right. Well, I think that Krishna Smarnam and Krishna Jivani, you're both blessed with wonderful children, and we all wish you only the best for your ongoing years in spiritual life and education. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right.